Hey, what's up, everyone? You're tuned into Faces of the District. We're here today with Dre at LADDER. Very excited for the conversation. We're at a beautiful space. You could see it here in the background, and we're hoping that you enjoy the conversation.
Hi, I'm Dre Wien. I am the owner of LADDER here in the Aken District.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for coming in.
Yeah, really excited to speak with you. I live down the street. I walk by your store all the time, just kind of peeking in. So I'm really excited just to hear your story and see what it's all about.
Awesome.
So what brought you to Shaker Heights?
Yeah, wow. There's a big question.
Sure.
So the store, I'd been living in Shaker for probably about 6 months when we opened the store. And I had a friend who moved back from New York. We were going back and forth on just places to shop in Cleveland, and my favorite denim brand had gone out of style. You know, they'd changed their style, and so I was asking her, "Have you found anywhere to shop for denim?" And totally in passing in a text message, she said, "No, we should open somewhere." And I said, "Yeah, let's do it. I know this space that's available up near my house, and we should totally just take a look at the lease." And she said I was kidding, and I said I wasn't. And 8 or 9 weeks after that, we were open. So It was a really fast turnaround. I like to say I didn't ever work a day in retail in my life until I opened the store. So it's been a little bit of a steep learning curve, but really fun. And I knew from the beginning that I wanted it to be a community space. So I was also a new mom. My son was about 1.5 years when I opened the space, and I was trying to figure out, how do you make friends moving from another city, coming to Cleveland? What does that look like?
Right.
And so I wanted to create a place where people would come that might want to be my friend. And it's working out so far.
Right. That's amazing. So what were you doing in New York?
I was working as a writer, and so I worked for a handful of marketing agencies. I was doing a lot of travel and food writing, and then I was certified in holistic nutrition. So I started seeing clients one-on-one, doing nutrition work, working in the wellness space, and then having a podcast, funny enough. So it's kind of been a wide ranging. I'm like a cat with like 9 different lives.
Right.
So this is just the latest iteration of that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And I guess other than your own interest or excitement around clothing and fashion and things like that, how do you just start a business that's in this industry?
So there's a couple of questions in that, I think. One of them, I wouldn't say that I was especially like my most fashionable friend. I think when I told some of my friends I was opening a retail store, they of course were supportive and excited, but it wasn't like I was the one that everyone was always coming to for fashion advice. So that's been an interesting change as well.
Right.
And I think in a way, living in New York and I've lived all over the world, just seeing the style in different cities, it is a bit osmosis. So you kind of pick up things here and there. And I think that to start a business, I've always said, when I've spoken on panels now or talked to people, I'm not the person that you come to if you don't want to actually just take the jump. Like for me, I would always regret more not doing something. And so I'm always going to push you to do it. And then maybe you should go check with your accountant, consult a few other people like lawyers and things like that. But yeah, my take on everything has always just been to do it and see how the chips fall. And if we need to change course or move in a different direction, then that can happen. But yeah, starting a business, unlike for most people, maybe is not very scary for me.
Sure. Absolutely. And how are you curating the collection? Where is it coming from? Do you have different vendors? It is all one person or company?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah. So that was a big piece of why we wanted to start too, was supporting smaller independent designers. So everything in the store is an independent designer, and they all have a focus on sustainability. Cool. So I knew that, people don't need more stuff, but people are going to continue to buy things. Sure. So if they're going to do that, I wanted it to be higher quality, things that are going to last for decades, heirloom pieces that you can hand down. And so our designers are really special to us. A lot of them are up and coming. We're talking to the individual designer instead of, a huge corporation. And that was important too, in terms of the community building aspect, to have a space that's beautifully curated, that has really high quality products from people that we want to work with and believe and trust was important. So there's that aspect of it. And then the sustainability piece is not only buying better quality, although that's a huge component of it, but also we do mostly natural fibers. So cottons, linens, wool, organic whenever possible, brands that are really paying attention to how much they're producing. And then doing it in a fair trade way. So people are being paid a fair working wage. They aren't working in massive factories where the working conditions are dangerous. So all of these pieces kind of go into what we use as our definition of sustainability.
Right. And where are you finding the designers? Like, how are you making those connections?
So some of it when we first started was just people that we had already known, brands that we liked working with. We reached out to them, and it was a pretty quick turnaround time in that first 8 weeks. So at the beginning, it was also who can get us product as quickly as that turnaround time. Now we have brands coming to us that we find. Honestly, Instagram has been huge for us. I'm sure everyone can relate to being targeted for things that you're searching for. So we get targeted a lot by cool brands that then we reach out to as well. And then I'm buying in New York. So going to New York, meeting with our vendors, getting introduced to new brands there. We have a new brand actually called World of Crow in the store, and I met her in New York at an apartment. She is the sweetest designer from India, and her pieces are incredible. But I have been joking around about this story because I went to this apartment building and I walked up the steps, and it's dark, and I was like, I'm going to get murdered in this apartment. And she answered the door, and it was pitch black. Like, the apartment was so dark. And I'm like, hey, what's going on here? And she said, we can't afford to show at the shows. We're too small. So one of my clients let me borrow their apartment so I could show my pieces, but I can't figure out how to turn on any of the lights. So then we spent the next 10 minutes kind of searching through the lights, and all of her dresses were laid out on the couch. And it's, I went into the bathroom to try them on. And so I like working with people who have that kind of scrappy mentality, number one, but also need visibility. And we have a really great working relationship with those types of designers where we can go to them and say, we need this a little longer, we need this in a different color. That's the beauty of working with smaller designers, and it's super important to us.
Can you show me one of those pieces?
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Let's see where they are. Everything gets moved around on me.
No worries. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
So yeah, I love that this dress, it's like very architectural, but like artsy. It has a pocket. It's just really incredible construction that, someone's going to have this for decades.
What's it like being back in Cleveland? I know you said you're from Akron, Cleveland, Akron. They're pretty close and by. You're kind of home.
Yeah, I was gone for a long time. So I was in New York City. I lived in Seattle for a while. I was in Sydney, Australia for a couple of years. I was nomadic for a time. We're just driving around and bouncing around. And so it's been nice in a way to really kind of set down roots here. We bought a house in Shaker. We had our son. And it's been, I could never have the store in many of those cities. Right. So in that sense, Cleveland is incredible in terms of the opportunity that it can provide to someone who has an idea and a dream and something that they want to do. And the community has been incredible also. It's been a very warm reception. A lot of the clients that we have come from New York, LA, Chicago, and they've moved back home too. And so it's been nice to be able to reconnect with people that have lived in other places.
That's so interesting because I have found, I'm from Cleveland. I never really realized things about Cleveland from an adult perspective until very recently. And Cleveland, especially Shaker Heights, is a huge transient sort of city. And to provide clothing and fashion and style that those people would be familiar with, that they're seeing in New York, that they're seeing all over the place as they're traveling. There's many doctors that come here and their wives are probably like, trying to do their own thing and finding, really awesome stuff that kind of meets what they're doing and what they're used to. So that's really cool.
Yeah. I mean, what we call our stuff is elevated basics. It's something that you could definitely take up a few notches if you put on some nice jewelry and a pair of heels, but it's also stuff that you're wearing when you're running around with your kids. So we're not super fancy, although we have plenty of dresses to wear to a wedding and things like that. But we really want our style to be very approachable and accessible and something that you're going to put on every day. Kind of create that capsule wardrobe. So you're able to mix and match. A lot of the pieces that we have in store can be worn multiple ways and with multiple things. And that's part of the sustainability story too.
Wow. Very cool. And who are you finding typically shops here?
So it's actually been an interesting pivot from what I thought it would be. I thought it would be a lot of people my age. I'm almost 40. That would be coming in. And we've actually found that our demographic is a little bit older. She's a little bit more mature, perhaps has kids in college, or maybe, they've left the house and she has some disposable income that's not going to schools and field trips and vacations and all those things that younger families are spending their money on. So our pieces, we have everything from entry-level price points around like $50 all the way up to things that are $1,000. And so it's really where you're at in that journey. So we have a different clientele based on what she's looking for and where she's at in her life.
Very cool. Do you have a favorite piece? I know we shared
that piece that I just showed you is actually my favorite piece of the moment. Yeah, I love those dresses. It's so hard to be, I pick everything by hand, and so it's really tough for me to pick a favorite because they're like your children. I like them all for different reasons.
There's like a different favorite for the different days.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Very cool. Actually, did you know the guy from Cleveland Clothing Company, Mike? He's from Akron as well. I don't know if you knew that.
No.
We're like hitting them one by one. We did him, then the art gallery.
All these Akronites lined up.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Very cool. And I guess, do you see what you're doing sort of like an art form in a way?
Yeah, I think for sure. I think even just looking around the store, and I have an incredible sales manager who has a background in fashion merchandising, but even just in how we put everything together and how it's pleasing to the eye when you walk in and how things are hung and displayed, there's hugely artistic background there. And then also in terms of our social media and the newsletters we're putting out. And I think there's a lot of creativity and craft that goes into that.
Sure. And what's your favorite thing about owning this business and being involved in this industry?
It's definitely meeting the people, for sure. We do a lot of community events out of the space too, whether it's sound baths or sip-in shops or trunk shows with local designers or people that aren't local. So it's just creating that community. It's been incredible to connect with other women business owners, and I've been lucky enough to be invited to speak on a few panels and at a few events geared towards women entrepreneurs, and that is my favorite. I love the meeting of the community.
That's awesome. And if you could describe an Aken District in one word, what would that word be?
It's a great question. One word, I would say community or home. Yeah.
Sure. Any events coming up?
We do, yeah. We have a few events in May that'll probably be too late for, but we do have our second birthday party. So our second birthday party is going to be June 3rd, and we'll have a DJ and drinks and some fun events and raffle prizes and things like that. So it's it's an awesome day to come out and just check out what we're all about if people haven't seen us before. But also if you're a good customer, we have some great specials too. So yeah, everyone's invited, open to anyone, whether you're going to buy something or not. And that's another piece that we're really focused on when we hire people and when we have our trainings and things like that. It's all about when people walk through the door, we want them to walk out feeling like they're a friend, whether or not they ever buy something. This is a place where our doors are always open. Stop in for a conversation. We have someone local named Bert. He comes in with his dog, and it's just a really fun time. So yeah.
Very cool. Well, I will ask you one last question
before
we wrap up. It was really great hearing all about everything you got going on, how you started the business. I think we'll have to come back and check out some of those events and, film those and get some of that out there as well. But just would love to know, people walk by here every single day, probably don't stop in, but they'd be a great fit for your product. They would fit into that community you talk about. What would you say to them to maybe entice them to get in the door and maybe, whatever that hesitation or apprehension is, what would you say?
I would say that if anyone has had an experience in a boutique where they don't feel welcome and they feel like it's not for them or out of place, that's the antithesis of what we're trying to do here. So come in, say hi. Even if you, like I said, never buy anything, we want you to be a friend, and we are here to help you in any way. We have people who come in who don't care at all about fashion and just kind of need some help, with a few key pieces. And then we, of course, have people who want to do their whole closets with us.
Right.
So we're happy to have any of those discussions. And many of our events, we're not selling anything. It's just a place for people to come gather. So
Right.
we won't bite. We'll be really kind. And yeah, we'd love to meet you.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks
it
for
was,
coming in.
Like I said, a really great conversation. You're tuned in to Faces of the District. If you haven't yet, subscribe, like, do all those things you're supposed to do online. And we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot.